Kamala Devi Harris is the Vice President of the United States. She always fights for the people, from her barrier-breaking time as District Attorney of San Francisco and Attorney General of California, to proudly serving as a United States Senator and the Vice President. On January 20, 2021, Kamala Harris was sworn in as Vice President, the first woman, the first Black American, and the first South Asian American to be elected to this position. As Vice President, she has worked to bring people together to advance opportunity, deliver for families, and protect fundamental freedoms across the country. She has led the fight for the freedom of women to make decisions about their own bodies, the freedom to live safe from gun violence, the freedom to vote, and the freedom to drink clean water and breathe clean air. While making history at home, she is also representing the nation abroad, embarking on more than a dozen foreign trips, traveling to more than 19 countries, and meeting with more than 150 world leaders to strengthen critical global alliances. The Vice President has been a trusted partner to President Joe Biden as they work together to deliver monumental achievements that are life-changing for millions of Americans. Together, they have invested in the economy to create a record number of jobs and keep unemployment low. Their work has led to more small business creation in a 2-year period than any previous administration. They capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors, cut prescription prices, and improved maternal health by expanding postpartum care through Medicaid. They passed the first meaningful gun safety law in 3 decades. Forming a bipartisan coalition, they enacted a $1 trillion investment in the country's infrastructure to remove every lead pipe in America and make the most significant investment in public transit, repairing bridges, and high-speed internet in history. As President of the Senate, Vice President Harris set a new record for the most tie-breaking votes cast by a vice president in history, surpassing a record that had stood for nearly 200 years. And her votes have been consequential. This includes casting the decisive vote to secure passage of the landmark Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment ever in tackling the climate crisis. She also presided over the unprecedented vote to confirm the first Black woman, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, to the Supreme Court while working alongside President Biden to achieve historic representation of women and people of color among nominees at all levels of the federal government. Fighting for the people is nothing new for Vice President Kamala Harris. In 2017, she was sworn into the United States Senate where she championed legislation to fight hunger, provide rent relief, improve maternal health care, expand access to capital for small businesses, revitalize America's infrastructure, and combat the climate crisis. She questioned 2 Supreme Court nominees while serving on the Judiciary Committee. She also worked to keep the American people safe from foreign threats and crafted bipartisan legislation to assist in securing American elections while serving on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. In 2010, Vice President Harris was elected Attorney General of California where she oversaw the largest state justice department in the country. She took on those who were preying on the American people, winning a $20 billion settlement for Californians whose homes had been foreclosed on and a $1.1 billion settlement for students and veterans who were taken advantage of by a for-profit education company. She also defended the Affordable Care Act in court and enforced environmental laws. In 2004, Vice President Harris was elected District Attorney of San Francisco where she was a national leader in the movement for LGBTQ+ rights, officiating the first same-sex wedding after Proposition 8 was overturned. She also established the office's Environmental Justice Unit and created a groundbreaking program to provide first-time drug offenders with the opportunity to earn a high school degree and find employment, which the U.S. Department of Justice designated as a national model of innovation for law enforcement. And years earlier, in 1990, she joined the Alameda County District Attorney's Office where she specialized in prosecuting child sexual assault cases. Vice President Harris was born in Oakland, California. As the daughter of immigrants, she grew up surrounded by a diverse community and a loving extended family. She and her sister, Maya, were inspired by their mother, Shyamala Gopalan, a breast cancer scientist and pioneer in her own right who came to the United States from India at the age of 19 and then received her doctorate the same year that Kamala was born. Both of the vice president's parents were active in the civil rights movement, and instilled in her a commitment to build strong coalitions that fight for the rights and freedoms of all people. They brought her to civil rights marches in a stroller and taught her about heroes like Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall and civil rights leader Constance Baker Motley. Vice President Harris went on to graduate from Howard University and the University of California Hastings College of Law. In 2014, she married Douglas Imhoff, a lawyer. They have a large blended family that includes their children, Ella and Cole. Kamala Harris is the 49th Vice President of the United States, 2021-25, in the Democratic administration of Pres. Joe Biden. She was the first woman, the first African American, and the first Asian American to hold the post. She had previously served in the U.S. Senate, 2017-21, and as Attorney General of California, 2011-17. In July 2024, following his poor performance in a nationally televised debate with Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump, Biden abandoned his bid for re-election and endorsed Harris as the Democratic Party's nominee in the presidential election of 2024. Her father, who was Jamaican, taught at Stanford University, and her mother, the daughter of an Indian diplomat, was a cancer researcher. Her younger sister, Maya, later became a public policy advocate. After studying political science and economics, B.A., 1986, at Howard University, Harris earned a law degree, 1989, from Hastings College. In 2012, Harris delivered a memorable address at the Democratic National Convention, raising her national profile. 2 years later she married attorney Douglas Imhoff. Widely considered a rising star within the party, she was recruited to run for the U.S. Senate seat held by Barbara Boxer, who was retiring. In early 2015 Harris declared her candidacy, and on the campaign trail she called for immigration and criminal justice reforms, increases to the minimum wage, and protection of women's reproductive rights. She easily won the 2016 election. When she took office in January 2017, Harris became the first Indian American in the Senate and just the second black woman. She began serving on both the Select Committee on Intelligence and the Judiciary Committee, among other assignments. She became known for her prosecutorial style of questioning witnesses during hearings, which drew criticism and occasional interruptions from Republican senators. In June she drew particular attention for her questions to U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who was testifying before the Intelligence Committee on alleged Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. She had earlier called on him to resign. Harris's memoir, The Truths We Hold, An American Journey, was published in January 2019. Shortly thereafter Harris announced that she was seeking the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020. From the outset she was seen as one of the leading contenders, and she drew particular attention when, during a primary debate, she had a contentious exchange with fellow candidate Joe Biden over his opposition to school busing in the 1970s and 80s, among other race-related topics. Although Harris's support initially increased, by September 2019 her campaign was in serious trouble, and in December she dropped out of the race. She continued to maintain a high profile, notably becoming a leading advocate for social justice reform following the May 2020 death of George Floyd, an African American who had been in police custody. Her efforts silenced some who had criticized her tenure as Attorney General, alleging that she had failed to investigate charges of police misconduct, including questionable shootings. Others, however, felt that her embrace of reform was a political maneuver to capitalize on the increasing public popularity of social change. As racial injustice became a major issue in the United States, many Democrats called on Biden, the party's presumptive nominee, to select an African American woman, a demographic that was seen as pivotal to his election chances as his vice presidential running mate. In August, Biden chose Harris, and she thus was the first black woman to appear on a major party's national ticket. In November, she became the first black woman to be elected Vice President of the United States. In the ensuing weeks, Trump and various other Republicans challenged the election results, claiming voter fraud. Although a number of lawsuits were filed, no evidence was provided to support the allegations, and the vast majority of the cases were dismissed. During this time, Harris and Biden began the transition to a new administration, announcing an agenda and selecting staff. By early December, all states had certified the election results, and the process then moved to Congress for final certification. Amid Trump's repeated calls for Republicans to overturn the election, a group of congressional members, which notably included Senators Josh Hawley, Missouri, and Ted Cruz, Texas, announced that they would challenge the electors of various states. Shortly after the proceedings began on January 6, 2021, a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol. It took several hours to secure the building, but Biden and Harris were eventually certified as the winners. She later denounced the siege, which many believed was incited by Trump, as an assault on America's democracy. On January 18, she officially resigned from the Senate. 2 days later, amid an incredible security presence, Harris was sworn in as vice president. Role as vice president. As Biden's vice president, Harris was tasked with issues including migration at the southern border, voting rights, and abortion. In the wake of the 2022 Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, she became a vocal and effective advocate for a woman's right to health care, including abortion. That continued into the 2024 campaign, where she was a regular presence on the campaign trail, warning that re-electing Trump would further limit a woman's access to abortion care. As president of the Senate, Harris cast a record number of tie-breaking votes, shattering a nearly 200-year-old record. When Biden dropped out of the 2024 race and announced his support for Harris, she responded by saying, "On behalf of the American people, I thank Joe Biden for his extraordinary leadership as President of the United States and for his decades of service to our country. I am honored to have the President's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination." Thank you for watching this video.